Welcome to Everything You Need to Know About Finance. Today, we're diving deep into building a really solid financial foundation. We want to equip you with some practical habits that can actually help you reach those big goals. Maybe you're dreaming about traveling, or perhaps building up that emergency fund, paying down debt, maybe even buying a home someday. Whatever it is, getting the groundwork right with consistent habits. That's absolutely key.
It really is. And, it's important to realize that lasting change in your financial situation, it rarely happens overnight with some grand gesture. It's much more often about adopting these consistent, sometimes small habits that just build up over time. And that's exactly what we're going to explore.
That's such a crucial point. Now, before we unpack these ideas, just a quick but really vital disclaimer. Everything we talk about today is purely for informational purposes. We're presenting data, insights, ideas. This isn't financial advice. Our goal here is just to introduce you to 6, pretty powerful habits that could genuinely transform your relationship with money, maybe give you some fresh ways to think about your finances. All right, let's dive in. The first crucial step on this journey, it's all about how you actually set your financial goals. We hear a lot about SMART goals, right? And, many of you listening probably know the acronym, but the real magic is applying it effectively, especially to tricky things like, say, paying off debt.
You're absolutely right. SMART, specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time-bound. It's such a valuable framework. It turns a vague wish into something concrete, something you can actually do. But, one part that often gets overlooked, or maybe where people trip up, is the realistic piece. It's easy to set these super aggressive goals, get burnt out, and then just give up. So a key thing is maybe adjusting that realistic part as you go, especially at the start, rather than just sticking rigidly to something that feels demotivating.
That's a really good insight. Okay, let's use a common example then. Paying off debt. Let's say student loans specifically. How would someone apply SMART effectively there, keeping that realistic aspect really front and center?
Okay, good one. Student loan debt. Let's break it down using SMART first. Specific. You got to know exactly how much you owe, like total amount, interest rates, the terms. Are you thinking about refinancing maybe to get a better rate? Specific means knowing the whole picture.
Right, getting all the details down.
Exactly. Then, measurable. How are you going to track your progress? Maybe you set a goal to pay down a certain amount of the principal each month, something you can actually see changing.
Okay, a clear metric makes sense.
And actionable. What steps are you actually going to take? This could be, gathering all your statements, seriously looking into refinancing, or maybe setting up automatic payments that are a bit higher than the minimum. Real actions.
Got it. Concrete steps.
Now, realistic. This is that tricky bit we mentioned. Look hard at your budget, your income. Can you really afford the repayment pace you're aiming for? Like, without making yourself totally miserable or skipping essentials. It's often better to aim slightly lower, but be consistent, than aim too high and fail repeatedly.
That feels more sustainable.
It is. And finally, time-bound. Set a time frame. Like, I want to pay off $15,000 of this debt by the end of the year. That gives you a deadline, helps you figure out the monthly target. What's so powerful here is how being specific and time-bound turns that fuzzy I want to pay off debt wish into a clear plan. It gives you direction. But always, always keep that realistic filter on.
Okay, so we've got the SMART goal set. We know what we're aiming for. But, often the hardest part isn't setting the goal, it's sticking with it, right? Staying on track. What's the next habit, the next step to keep that momentum going?
That leads us straight into the second habit, scheduling regular money check-ins. Some people call them money dates, which I kind of like. The idea is simple. Pick one day each month, put it in your calendar, and actually sit down to review your finances. It's about being proactive, not just, reacting when a bill shows up unexpectedly.
Money dates. I like that. So what should actually happen during these check-ins? It's got to be more than just glancing at your bank balance, I assume.
Oh, definitely. Should be pretty comprehensive. You'd want to check your budget first, see how your income and spending matched up for the month, make any adjustments needed for the next month. Life changes, so your budget needs to flex too.
Right, adapt it as you go.
Exactly. Then, review progress towards all your financial goals. Debt payoff, savings goals, investing targets, whatever you've set, update those totals. How much closer are you?
See the progress. That must be motivating.
It really is. And don't forget retirement accounts. Take a look at how your investments are doing. Maybe ask yourself, can I bump up my contribution? Even just a little. Those small increases over time, they make a massive difference thanks to compounding. If you think about the bigger picture, really being tuned into your money like this, making these dates a priority, it's just fundamental for long-term financial security. It's about awareness, adapting, staying in control.
Okay, building right on that idea of regular check-ins, the third habit really zooms in on a super critical piece: your expenses. We know budgeting has two sides, right? What's coming in and what's going out. Income might be steady, maybe, but expenses, they can be all over the place. So tracking spending seems vital.
It's absolutely vital. Even if your income is stable as a rock, if you don't know precisely where your money is actually going each month, you can't really make informed decisions. It's like flying blind. Honestly, most people are genuinely surprised when they first start tracking and see the reality versus what they thought they were spending.
I can totally relate to that. I know for me, the idea of tracking every single coffee or purchase felt, well, overwhelming at first. What's a practical way to start for someone who finds it a bit daunting?
Yeah, that's a common feeling. The good news, the specific method isn't as important as just doing it consistently. You could go totally old school, write things down in a notebook. Some people find that physical act really connects them to their spending.
Right.
Or use a spreadsheet, if you like, organizing things that way, categorizing, analyzing. And of course, there are tons of great budgeting apps now. Many link to your accounts and automate a lot of it. The key is finding a system you'll actually stick with. That's the most important part. Find your way.
So find what works for you and just do it.
Exactly. And regardless of the tool, the main goal is this. Once you see where the money's going, you can spot the waste. Maybe it's subscriptions you forgot about, too much takeout, that gym membership you never use. Then you can consciously decide to cut those unnecessary costs. So the question for you listening is, do you really know where every single dollar goes? It's worth finding out.
This is probably a good moment to say, if you find this kind of content interesting, digging into these topics, please do like and subscribe to our deep dives. It helps us bring you more insights on navigating these complex areas. Okay, so we're tracking spending. We have a clearer picture. What about those moments, those impulse buys that can derail even the best budget? The fourth habit sounds like it addresses this directly. It's called the 48-hour rule. I remember using something like this once. I almost bought this fancy gadget online, waited 2 days, realized I didn't need it at all, saved myself a fair bit.
That's a perfect illustration. The 48-hour rule is exactly that simple. You just commit to waiting 2 full days before making any impulse buys or significant non-essential purchases. Its real power isn't just stopping one bad purchase, though. It's about building a habit of intentionality. It breaks that cycle of seeing something and immediately wanting it, clicking buy now. It trains your brain to pause.
Yeah, that pause is everything, isn't it? It gives you time to actually think, maybe do a little research, ask yourself, is this really a good use of my money? Do I truly need it or just want it right now? It shifts you from reacting to deciding.
Precisely. And honestly, this simple habit, it can save you hundreds, potentially even thousands, over time just by cutting back on that unnecessary spending. It's a subtle shift, but it moves you from impulsivity towards real intentionality with your money. And often, after 48 hours, that urgent want just fades.
Okay, now for a habit that sounds almost too easy, but apparently really effective. The fifth habit. Round up to save up. This is about saving money easily, maybe without even really noticing it, right? And you can use it for any goal, retirement, debt, whatever. Tell us about rounding up.
Right. It's wonderfully simple and works in a couple of main ways.
Right.
First, you can round up unused money within your budget categories. So let's say you budgeted $500 for groceries this month, but you only spent $475. Instead of just letting that extra $25 get absorbed somewhere else, you actively move it into your savings account.
Ah, clever. So it's money you'd planned to spend anyway but didn't need to, now working for you in savings. Okay, what's the other way?
The other way is rounding up your actual transactions as you make them. Let's say lunch cost you $33.50. You could mentally, or using an app feature, round that up to $35. Then that extra $1.50 difference gets automatically transferred to your savings. Lots of banking apps actually offer this feature now, making it completely seamless.
Wow, that's brilliant. These little mini deposits, they let you build savings without feeling like you're making huge sacrifices or needing a big chunk of cash to start. It really does sound like saving without even feeling it.
Exactly. And while each little bit seems tiny, maybe just cents or a dollar here and there, it adds up surprisingly fast, especially if that savings account is earning some interest. It just demonstrates the power of consistent small actions, turning spare change, essentially, into real savings over time.
Okay, finally, we get to the sixth habit. This one's for people looking beyond just saving towards actually growing their wealth, maybe with less hands-on effort. Investing in index funds. What exactly is an index fund, and why are they so popular, especially for long-term growth?
Okay, so an index fund is basically a type of investment fund designed to track a specific market index. Think of major indexes like the S&P 500, which represents 500 large U.S. companies, or the Nasdaq Q100 or the Dow Jones. Instead of a fund manager actively picking stocks they think will win, an index fund just aims to mirror the performance of the entire index it tracks. It holds the same stocks, usually in the same proportions. So if the S&P 500 goes up 1%, the S&P 500 index fund should go up roughly 1% too, minus very small fees.
So it's passive investing. You're not trying to beat the market, just match it. What makes that so appealing, particularly maybe for someone newer to investing who feels intimidated by picking individual stocks?
That's exactly it. The passive approach has some major draws. First, fees are typically very low compared to actively managed funds where you're paying for the manager's expertise. Second, you get instant broad diversification. Owning an S&P 500 index fund means you effectively own a tiny piece of 500 different companies, which spreads out your risks significantly. And third, history shows they deliver consistent long-term returns, often actually beating the majority of actively managed funds over long periods, partly because of those lower fees. An interesting insight here is they also help remove emotion from investing. You're not tempted to constantly buy and sell based on headlines. You just stick with the market's overall trend. You can invest in them easily through brokerage accounts, retirement plans like IRAs or 401ks, or buy index tracking ETFs, exchange-traded funds.
So low fees, diversification, historically solid returns, less emotional decision-making sound like a strong case for long-term wealth building with less fuss.
It really is. For many people seeking steady growth and wealth accumulation over the long haul, without needing to become stock-picking experts, they're a very attractive and effective choice.
Yeah.
The evidence over decades is quite compelling.
Okay, so wrapping this all up, what's the big takeaway for you, the listener? I think the core message is pretty clear. Getting financially healthy doesn't necessarily mean massive, painful lifestyle changes right away. It really starts with adopting these kinds of smart money habits. We've talked about setting SMART goals, doing those regular money check-ins, tracking your spending to really understand it, using the 48-hour rule for discipline, the easy wins from rounding up, and then the long-term power of index funds. And patience, right. Patience seems crucial for letting these habits actually stick and become second nature. Give yourself time. If you can stick with these ideas, the end result really can be a much healthier financial picture by the end of the year and definitely a more secure path forward.
Absolutely. And maybe one final thought looking ahead. If we connect this to the bigger picture, these habits aren't just about hitting one specific goal, like paying off that debt or saving for a down payment. They're about building a lifelong discipline, a foundation of financial resilience and adaptability. Because, let's face it, the economic world keeps changing, right? New challenges, new opportunities. Your ability to consistently use these principles, to keep learning, to review and maybe tweak these habits as your life changes. That will be your biggest asset for long-term prosperity, for navigating whatever comes next. So the question to ponder is, what kind of financial future will you intentionally build by embracing this ongoing journey?
That's a really powerful question to end on, something definitely for all of us to think about. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into financial well-being. We really encourage you to maybe pick one or two of these habits and start implementing them today.